The abolitionist movement also provided the training ground for the organizers of the women's rights campaign. In many ways, the economic revolution of the Jacksonian era had a profound impact on the role played by women in society. Prior to this period, it was very typical for husband and wife to work together as an economic unit. Most people had their businesses in their homes, either as farmers or as craftsmen. Women were expected to manufacture a good many of the things that we now take for granted, such as soap, candles, cloth, clothing. However, with the increasing expansion of the market economy and industry, this began to change. More and more, particularly in the cities and towns, men no longer worked out of their homes, and there began to be two separate spheres. The men's sphere was outside the home, earning a living and participating in public events. The women's realm was the home. Women also began to lose their economic importance, as manufacturing began to make it cheaper to buy the items that had previously been produced in the home. Some women, particularly in the middle class, began to question their role in society. They suggested that women were fundamentally different than men, innately pious, virtuous, unselfish, modest. By training their children to be moral and patriotic citizens, and by ensuring that their husbands had a clean and upright home, women would ensure the welfare of the entire republic. Historians have come to call these ideas the cult of domesticity, and while it began as an idea that was really mostly relevant to a rather small number of women, white, middle-class, urban women, the cult of domesticity was quickly spread by the growth of the publishing industry and the educational system. There was a flood of women's magazines, novels, etiquette and child-rearing manuals, and school books, all of which disseminated this idea of women's proper role in society. Although this message emphasized women's role in the home, it could also encourage women to go into the public sphere. If women were guardians of the family's morals, why not guardians of the public morals? Thus, the early 19th century witnessed a tremendous growth in voluntary female associations. Most of these were religious and charitable in nature. They supported orphanages, paid for and distributed religious tracts, established Sunday schools, and ministered to the poor. These activities developed not only out of the cult of domesticity, but also from the Second Great Awakening, which had emphasized the importance of human agency and free will in changing society. Driven by a sense of their public responsibility, women also played a key role in the reform campaigns of this era, such as the drive to ban alcohol or to provide public education. They played a particularly important role in the abolitionist movement, seeing this as a logical extension of the female role as the moral voice of society. Their participation in the abolitionist crusade was far from uncontroversial. Women speakers were often hissed and booed by their audiences, and characterized as promiscuous for trying to address mixed audiences of both men and women. By the late 1830s, this would become a divisive issue in the anti-slavery societies, with some, such as William Lloyd Garrison, arguing for and promoting the role of women as equals in the movement, and others arguing against it. The anti-slavery movement was both a training ground for future feminists, providing an education in organizational techniques and public speaking, and a source of inspiration and revelation. Many women began to recognize that their status as women was in many ways similar to that of African American slaves. They could not vote or hold public office. Most avenues of educational and economic advancement were closed to them, and what property and wages they did manage to accumulate generally legally belonged to their male guardians, either fathers or husbands. The anti-slavery movement also revealed the sharp limitations of the one significant role that they were allowed under the cult of domesticity, as the moral guardians of society. Even here, they would repeatedly run their heads into a wall of male prejudice. No incident better illustrates this than the World's Anti-Slavery Convention, held in London in 1840. When it became clear that some American women intended to attend the convention, the British organizers made it very clear that this was a gentleman's only affair, and that women were not allowed. Female reformers such as Lucretia Mott, who had given so much to this cause, were not allowed to participate, but could only listen to the proceedings as observers tucked away in the galleries. By the 1840s, the women's rights movement began to become an independent movement, culminating in the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York, in 1848. Here, women delegates set forth a platform based on the Declaration of Independence, which read in part, Quote, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. The history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man towards women, having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over her." Unquote. The delegates thus made clear their conclusion that the revolution was not yet over, that its sentiments and principles still need to be extended to all Americans, regardless of gender.